What if I told you that Disney was forced to make trash content by law?
That doesn't make any sense.
Because the thing is, California is so insane, it's not that far off. The Mandalorian and Grogu lands one of California's largest tax credit awards ever. And it is a massive discount. Being filmed entirely in California, it will come to nearly $22 million in conditional tax credits. And it's the conditional part, which is the problem. Because alone, tax credits aren't that unusual. These companies spend a lot of money in an area, and so people want to attract them to that area. California, though, bit of a special case, as are a lot of the people in it.
What are you going to do to stop the crazies?
Because recently, the governor of California actually decided to change how the tax credits would be awarded, and exactly what you'd need to do as the conditions. And that was that he wanted to add diversity requirements. That means the way a company in Hollywood gets money from the government is to actively engage in discriminatory hiring practices, which were supposed to be illegal. You're obviously going to end up with people who never deserve to be there in the first place, because if they were good enough to get hired normally, you wouldn't need to get paid by the state to actually take them on.
It's the principle of the thing.
Now, most people would think getting paid by the state to actively discriminate against people would be about as bad as a story could get. Well, we can beat that. This is California. Because they'd already tried to do this once for their own hiring policies. They tried to repeal a proposition which stated that the government and public institutions could not discriminate or grant preferential treatment to people on the basis of various different physical characteristics or national origin. And the only reason to repeal this is if you wanted to do it. Now, as it turned out, this law, it did get voted down, 57% to 42%. A lot closer than you'd expect for supposed civilization. But my favourite thing about it is that this vote clearly didn't stop them. I mean, yes, they couldn't publicly do it in their own institutions, but you know what they could do? They can pay private companies to do it for them. It's illegal for us to do it, but as long as we pay other people to get the same effect, does it really matter?
If I have to explode the engines and rapture this world and damn us all to hell, then I will!
It is one of those levels of sort of evil genius where I'm impressed. You start rooting for them a little bit, not least because it might destroy Disney. Hey, I mean, they're getting paid $22 million so that they can burn hundreds of millions of dollars. I think that's a good deal. We'll give you $22 million to ensure that your movie flops. I've never accused Disney of being smart, although I might have a different opinion of the people in charge of California. They know how to find a legal loophole and get what they want. Massive raises.
You stupid woman with your weird child!
Because they know Hollywood's weakness. It's the #1 rule. It's always self-interest. Hollywood is like Snow White getting given a poisoned apple, except with them, they're going, you know this is poisoned? Like, yes. Here's £50 to eat it anyway. They're going to do it because they have no principles, no morals, and they're that greedy. That's why this entire grift came around in the first place, and you can see it every time an actor ever brings it up. Peter Dinklage criticizes Disney for backwards remake of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Because it had dwarves in it. Because you wouldn't expect him to be, you can't put a dwarf in a TV show. It kind of put him out of a job. Until you realise that there are 7 of them coming through Hollywood, and all of those would be competition for him for a very small amount of roles. So essentially, he's just pulling the stepladder up behind him. Or you have Gina Davis saying that Hollywood is still terrible when it comes to creating roles for older women. And she says this when she's 65. You need to make more roles for, roles that I can do. It's always the same. They're always tying morality to you doing something that benefits them. Well, unless you're one of the people who are being genuinely oppressed by Hollywood. Anyway, the only difference is you won't hear them complain about it, because they'd get fired.
You're pure evil.
And you're just another man taking credit for a woman's work.
Not the case for Phoebe Denover, though. Aren't enough parts for younger women nowadays. It's a really good time for older women, but not me. At 28. You need to make more roles for 28-year-olds, because I'm 28, and 65-year-olds. And then we have Eva Longoria, who said that Latina directors don't get many bites of the apple. We need more Latina-directed films, because she's Latina and a director. That's a coincidence. We need more directorship roles. Who for? Well, I mean, that'll be me, wouldn't it? Yeah, it's always about me. Although my favourite quote from this article was, a white male could direct a $200 million flop and get another one. I can't. Have you tried directing a successful movie instead, love? I think it'd be better for your career overall, rather than demanding so many roles that they have to hire you even when you flop.
What I care about is the reality of goodness, not the perception of it.
The metric in which you measure success is important. How about how much profit you make in a movie? The great thing about profit is it's basically a scoreboard on its own. And for a business, Nothing else matters. That's why they're using money to forcefully take over an entire industry. As when you go into the bill itself, and it was Echo Chamberlain that first put me onto this, it says for any applicant made after July 1st, 2023, they have to provide a diversity work plan that includes goals that are broadly reflective of California's population.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to have sex with my brother.
Cut. Thank you.
These are movies, a product which is sold around the world. It's ushered in under the facade of being representative and getting a wider audience. A wider audience would include the world. Even from a local American perspective, you'd expect it to be of America, at least representative of the nation itself. But there's a problem with that, because that includes places like Florida or Texas. And that isn't a desirable outcome that California or Hollywood even wants. Now, they want California's population to be the ones in control of Hollywood, to the point where they will pay you tens of millions of dollars to force them into your company. Literally crowbar people in who wouldn't have been there otherwise, and actively exclude people from outside of the state who are too clever to live there. Because as people flee California to move to other states, the makeup of California will change. And this is a zero-sum game. If you're actively hiring someone over here because you're getting paid to, means you can't hire that guy. He'll change your numbers. You can't afford it. It'll cost you $22 million. And so what you end up with is government-mandated incompetence.
At the end of the day, this is a story of representation, and it matters.
And because this is specifically reflective of California's population, there's more to it than just a people. A company by itself doesn't have any kind of culture. It doesn't have any belief system. It can't have an opinion on any of this stuff until somebody's hired to have an opinion on it. But a company is full of people who have opinions. This generally isn't a problem, because if you just hire the best people for the job, you'll probably end up with a broad range of opinions, which will generally cancel each other out, and everyone just cares about the quality of the product.
You're pure evil.
Not under this law, because this law is about being reflective of California's population. You will also end up with California's culture, California's belief system and values, for a product that you want to ship out across the world. What is California's reputation from around the world? Speaking as someone who comes from around the world, California's values aren't my values. In fact, from my perspective, they greatly over-index for lunatics.
Dad issues.
But one thing they will do is put their values and beliefs into the movie itself. So the government pays the company to put a specific value system into the movie, which then gets shipped around the world and nobody watches it because it's not their values, and the movie dies. With that, going back to my intro, what if I told you that Disney was forced to make trash content by law? Really doesn't seem that far off, does it? In fact, one of the only defenses that I could even see for this kind of thing is that the industry itself already forces this on people through things like Oscars rules. That you could argue they were going to do this anyway. Especially Disney was likely to do this anyway. But isn't that the problem? No one really expected the Mandalorian and Grogu to be good in the first place, because we already knew what we were going to get, and all the inherent problems within it were going to lead the movie to be ass. But this isn't just about the Mandalorian and Grogu. They just made the news because they had one of the biggest tax breaks ever, only beaten by Transformers Bumblebee or coming in near Captain Marvel, both of which were made before this new requirement was listed, so they were good or bad based on their own merit.
I'm offering to help you. Least you could do is give me a smile.
But other films from this point on won't be. If you want to make a movie in California and you want the money, well, you've got to do it. Maybe you weren't going to do it before. Maybe you had the wacky idea that you wanted to make the best movie that you possibly could, featuring the best people that you could get. Well, not in California, you won't. No, in California, you'll be forced to hire a load of people that do nothing except try and use their own characteristics to get themselves more work, to complain about how you're immoral unless you give them more work. Because you see, your morality is tied to their bank balance. Which is my favourite thing about all of this. They're so obviously terrible people, the moment you remove it from their virtue framing, where you just describe it in simple terms. Oh right, you want more roles that you can do so you get more money, right?
We're the victims. Feel bad for us. That's what that is.
You realise that everyone involved is just horrific. With that in mind, is it any wonder that film is declining as the primary form of entertainment? That people don't know movie stars anymore? Because as the quality declines, as people stop getting hired because they're the best people, and instead get hired because they whine the most, the quality will obviously crash through the floor. Which means that people start looking for alternative forms of entertainment. And Disney really can't afford this trouble right now. I mean, yes, their stock's going up because they invested in Fortnite and gave out a small dividend. Congratulations. But the stock price is really a load of people's opinions about where your company is going. It's not where your company is going. So Disney can't afford to be crashing films like The Mandalorian and Grogu. They need some successes, and even the actors don't like working for them at the moment. Ray Winston said that making a Marvel movie is fine till you have to do the reshoots. Yeah, you know, I could suffer through it the first time when I knew I had to do it to get the tens of millions of dollars. But I grin and bared it, and now you want me to come back and do it again? Are you insane? That feels like getting kicked in the balls. That's a quote.
I loved it.
He described it as soul-destroying, and even said that you ought to recast it, because that was it for me. I've suffered through enough. Yeah, no, I did go through and film the entire movie, but you want me to go back and shoot for a couple of days again? No, just recast the entire thing. I'm done. I mean, I don't know. To me, it doesn't sound like it was a great work environment. That sounds more like acting in a sword film if the scenes were actually real. No, look, mate, I escaped once. I'm not doing it again. I've only got one more arm. And look, right now, Dune Part 2 is doing really well, with a great global debut. But it's not Disney. No, Iger over the last year has apparently ditched 80% of his stock, while desperately trying to keep people off his board, presumably because the ones that are already there are firmly under his control, and they did it with the strangest video possible.
You're probably wondering what we're all doing here today.
Shown on the white proxy card, the white, remember, it's important you vote only for Disney's 12 nominees using the white proxy card. The white.
They even started dragging out Walt Disney's grandchildren to back Bob Iger. Oh, I don't know what that article's doing there. That's a completely unrelated topic, I'm sure. Generational wealth. Why do 70% of families lose their wealth in the second generation? It's 90% by the third generation, if you're interested. And it's very obvious why. The person that made the money was the one who sacrificed their life to actually make it. They were the person of talent and hard work. They gave up their spare time to work to make the money for the betterment of their family in the future. Now, the kids underneath, they won't appreciate it as much, but they did see the amount of sacrifice and hard work that actually went in to make the money in the first place. They also will have hopefully been raised with the same values that made the money in the first place. Second one doesn't. The second one was always rich, lazy, entitled, has no idea how normal people live.
Way to set feminism back a few decades.
Definitely has no idea about business, as their parents weren't the one that created the business in the first place. They didn't have the talent to make it, they just learnt enough from the talent to probably keep it running. And when you're that far removed, is it any idea that you have absolutely no idea what you're doing? And you will back the very same person that got your company into this hole in the first place. You'll even pay them for the privilege. They're so ignorant, they call him a wolf in sheep's clothing and a villain in a Disney story. Apparently, Bob Iger
is terrified that one day he'll be discovered as the aging, talentless hack that he really is.
And his management team understand the longevity of Walt Disney's company isn't only a result of smart business decisions. It better not be, because he doesn't know how to make any of those. It's rooted in the strong emotional connection Disney continues to forge with generations of people. Yeah, she thinks Disney's success is tied to the strong feeling of disgust that Disney is instilling in people around the world. I mean, it's a brave strategy. Let's see how long they can remain that stupid. They even said that Bob Iger could continue the brand of integrity. I've really only got one thing to say to that.
Hey, Bob, go yourself. Is that clear?
Bob Iger has grown this company in a modern world, yeah, that's the problem, and continues to maintain a balance of creativity and profit. Overall losses for Disney Plus, $11 billion since 2019.
There's a theme here, by the way. A little bit.
He better bring a lot of creativity, because he isn't bringing much profit. No, something tells me that if Walt Disney was around today, the only thing he'd be doing with your letters is burning them. Abigail Disney may talk about this is the Disney brand of integrity. But she's also a rabid lunatic that thought Walt was a fascist.
I'm not about to let a man take credit for a woman's work.
And not just a light one, no. Rabidly. Oh, and he also really loved discrimination when he co-founded it, apparently. Yeah, massive bigot, that Walt. I mean, this is a woman that has absolutely slated the guy who gave her everything that she has. But the moment she gets to support the guy destroying the company, well, she's bang on his side. I get the feeling this is a person that would definitely support the Mandalorian and Grogu going down this path. Or this one, actually, which Valiant Renegade posted. Disney unveils their 2024 television writing and directing program, the FX Singleton Scholars. It is an interesting selection of people, or as I put it, what was the application question? Did you like Barbie? I do think there's a few fans in there. Not much testosterone, but a few fans. I mean, if you asked me for directors and writers that could destroy a Mandalorian and Grogu movie, it's like a fantasy football team, but for trash.
Tell it to the judge. The judge is the public.
Well, I think we'd be pretty successful here. How many of them do you think got there on merit? They're the kind of people who wouldn't know who Batman was, but would know why it should be cancelled. But Disney does already have the perfect job opportunity for them. In fact, I wouldn't even put them through any training. Face it, it's not going to make them any better. Instead, what you need to do is just give them on-the-job experience immediately. Stick them on the Acolyte. I think they could bring a lot of morality to it. The Acolyte lead says this will honor the ethos of Star Wars and the ideas around the Force, and also challenge them, which means change them. I mean, remember what Ahsoka did? We're all Jedi now. Being a Jedi isn't about whether you're born with the Force. We're all equal. Everyone's got the Force. Ever since Ahsoka released, I've been trying to move things with my mind. It's rather ironic, really. As you know, none of them have used theirs. Did any of you cry in the Barbie movie? I need to know. Just so hard being you. Everything given to you on a silver platter. No reason whatsoever. So difficult, life in Hollywood.
It is literally impossible to be a woman.
And nobody gives you a medal or says thank you.
I can't even make a $200 million movie flop and get another one.
I'm just so tired of watching myself.
You would assume that Hollywood, being in vast amounts of trouble as it is, would have better things to think about. They're running out of money, streamers are cutting content, actors can't get as many roles, and yet they're not even trying to save the industry. They're not going back to basics or thinking, what do moral people want? What does civilized society actually want? Instead, it's, what does California want? How can we gain a little bit of money so that we can lose a lot more? Or how can we preserve our jobs despite the fact that we've been burning the company to the ground, even when that company is responsible for everything that we have in life, because we despise our own family that made it. No, Disney isn't saving anything. In fact, they seem to be doubling down on the bigotry and hate. It is built into the very programs of the company, the scholarships of the company, the values, and new modern traditions going forwards. There's some people that ask, have we reached the peak? Are we going down the other side of the hill? Is this rolling backwards? Does it seem like it? Because the only way you are going to change the values of the company are by changing the values of the staff, not enforcing it by law or getting paid to put them there. You can't make good movies without the values of the movie aligning with the audience. And unless you're incredibly good at faking it, these people don't align with the audience. And I have a feeling they'd find it incredibly difficult to fake it when they are so proud that they hate everything those beliefs stand for, they will even come out and attack their own families. As far as I'm concerned, if Hollywood can be saved, it is a long way from it happening, because the people that got you into this mess can't get you out of it. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video, subscribe. More videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.